Okay, welcome to this data science employability panel. And I'm Alex. I'm a lecturer at the University of Sheffield. And together with Deep, there's also a lecturer here. We'll talk today with some University of Sheffield alumni. So what I want to ask, maybe as the first thing, just very quickly, we can have a round just to say hello and to check the connection works. So I will call your name, and it would be great if you can just turn your microphone on and say hello. And you can tell us where you're calling from. I'm calling from Italy. So Deep, do you want to say hello?
Yes, so well, hi everyone, and thank you for agreeing to be on this panel today. And I'm calling from Sheffield, and I'm one of the lecturers in the University of Sheffield, and I'm very much looking forward to hearing from you. And I hope that this panel gives our current students some advice on how they can prepare for their employability future.
Okay, thanks. Lina?
Hi everyone, I'm Limna. I'm calling from Shanghai, China. So glad to meet you guys, and I can share my job hunting experience with others. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Lucy?
Hello, I'm Lucy. I'm also calling from Sheffield, and it'll be really good to be able to share my experience with everybody today.
Thanks. Zhongyang?
Hi everyone, I'm Zhongyan, and now I just in Chesterfield, and I was come from Taiwan. And as most of you, I just as a very fresh alumni graduate list January, so happy to share some experience if I can support you. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, so I want to just thank you again for being here. I know that it's some of you are working and it's hard to find the time, and it was a bit hectic also to arrange with all these changes. But this is very useful for our students. So probably you remember how stressful it was to get the first job, to look around, and I think it's great that to help them to prepare for this period of looking for a job. It's great they can learn from your experience. So basically, what we will do is first have a quick a statement or introduction for each of you, in which you can talk about your experience, anything that is related to employability, and then we will have some questions that we collected from our students of this year. And just to also, since this is recorded, we will also have additional material put online from other alumni and from other lecturers that already prepared the material and recorded it because they couldn't be here now. Okay, so just very quickly, there were a lot of questions, and the main one were about visa sponsorship for overseas students. A lot of students ask how to prepare for the interviews. They don't feel that the preparation can necessarily match what the employer requires, and also how to find jobs overseas, like in China or in Saudi Arabia, in other parts. And all of these things create a lot of questions. We will focus only on a few questions that I will show later. Well, I can show you very quickly here. And later we can go through these questions, and if you want, you can answer to some of that or those. But I guess now we can just start and go through your presentation. So I will stop sharing my screen, and then I can share it later. So, okay, I guess we can go in the same order as before. Lina, do you want to start, if you want to say something?
Okay. So first, I'd like to introduce myself a little bit. I'm a data science student who graduated from last year. And after graduation, I tried to look for a job in UK for 6 months, but I failed. And then I back to China at the end of March this year. Now I'm working at Apple as a IT project manager. So my work mainly focus on supply chain management to optimize supply chain, which involves data analysis and business requirement analysis and building optimizer models and ETL tools, etc. So then I like to share some of my experience of how to develop application and prepare interview. So usually my job hunting order is like this. So firstly, I search the jobs I like to apply and read their requirements carefully. And then I customize my CV for that specific job. So that means every time when I apply a new job, I modify, updating my CV based on that job. So because CV is so important, it's the first impression for the employer. They say if you match with this job or not. So I spent a lot of time working on it, and I also use our university's career service session to ask them. They are professionals and they have experience of how to make a good CV. So I ask their help to help me to check the CV and give me some feedback. And then I also ask it as many friends as possible. Let them help me to check my CV and they all give me some valuable comments. So this is the preparation of CV, and after CV, maybe your CV is passed, and then for the interview preparation. So there are different types of interview. So, for example, maybe at the beginning, the employer will give you a call and ask you about some basic questions like background and your career development plan and salary expectations, these kind of things. It's kind of easy, and you can also search online of what kind of questions they ask through phone. And after this part, and then it's go into the video interview or face-to-face interview. This is the most important and difficult part, actually. So to prepare this, I think we first need to know the company we are applying better. So I usually search a lot of information about this company and see what they are doing, what they are looking for, and then I prepare my. I think about some questions they might ask me, and also combine what I can do, what I can contribute to this company, and what's my strengths to match this position. So, and also this is a question prepare part, and after that I ask some friends and to practice the interview, and then it's a good way that release the nervous, and organize the answers, when you are talking face to face. Yeah, I think it's a good way. So that's all. That's I like to share. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Lina. So I guess we can now move to Lucy.
Just checking that I'm not muted. Good. Hello. So I'll just begin with a brief introduction to myself before going on to the actually same topic as Lina. So I'll try and kind of approach it differently because Lena kind of covered really all the basics that I was going to talk about. So I'll try and take a different tack. So I am actually in a slightly different position than everybody else on the call because I graduated some time ago. I graduated from information management in, I think, 2011 or 2012. So I've been in the industry for a while, but my first degree is in philosophy, so I don't really have that much of an IT background, but I kind of developed an interest in databases whilst I was doing my master's. Straight from my master's, I started working in a graduate scheme for a huge multinational corporation, and I really hated it. It really wasn't the one for me. I just couldn't get on with it, and it was one of them when you think, I thought I was making the right decision, but it was definitely the wrong decision for me. But by stroke of luck, I got made redundant from that job, which meant I was kind of free to explore what I wanted to do next, and also didn't have to pay back for my training costs with the graduate company, with the corporation. So one thing I learned there is always read through your contract, make sure that you understand what you're signing, make sure it is definitely the right thing for you, and make sure there aren't any kind of hidden red flags that you wouldn't have thought of initially. What I did after that was I briefly worked in, well, not that briefly, but I worked in the arts. I kind of explored a bit more creative side of myself, but then I realized that even though I'm doing this, I'm still just working in the office, and I felt a bit burned out, and I felt like I don't really know whether I'm actually good at this, whereas I was good at working with databases. I know that for sure, and that was really satisfying. So I still wanting to kind of do good in the world. I applied to work in a charity, and I worked as a reporting officer for sort of, I think, 3 years, where I kind of came into it with not having done any SQL for a good number of years, and then just being thrown into the deep end. And really important for me was to be able to learn on the job, and really learn practical applications of how you kind of do complex problem solving with writing SQL. And I also learned about kind of data visualization, data presentation, got to use a number of different tools, got to use Power BI, got to use the latest version of SQL Server. I became a massive Excel whiz, but you learn all of that on the job. It's not really expected that you kind of know everything from the start as you start your job. And moving on from that, I now work for BT as a kind of senior reporting analyst, where I've really built up on my tool set. I've done much more complex SQL programming, and the data that I work with is huge. It's far more complex, but again, it really feeds into my interest in sort of just basic problem solving with through data, and helping people make business decisions through data, which is I think it's the big one in this day and age. So to move on to the topic that I was going to cover, how to prepare your application and how to prepare for an interview. I think maybe I'll approach it from a viewpoint of someone who isn't starting straight from university. You might also have people who are in a similar boat as me. Maybe people are thinking of switching careers, or maybe they have some experience behind their belt. So what I would do is having a tailored CV to every job that you apply for is a must, and Lena's already covered that. But what I normally do is I go through the person specification and the job description, and I make sure that for every bullet point I could come up with an example of how I've done that very specific thing, or how I've done something very similar that also applies to that point. And I make sure that I write a little paragraph for each of these points, and I kind of commit that to memory so that I'm not. It's about not being surprised at the interview. You want to be prepared for everything. So I'm not memorizing a huge speech, but I've kind of got I've made some notes. What will be really important is to be able to show how your experience applies to the role, and that doesn't necessarily have to be, oh, you know, I've written so much SQL code or whatever. It might be that you just want to show that you know how to apply like programming concepts, or you would know how to manage a project because you've done something very similar. It just wasn't an IT project, for instance. So to be able to show that you are a capable person and just trust yourself. It's not at this stage. It's not a one-way street. You're not there. It's really easy to get into the mindset of kind of people pleasing and telling them, because you know what they want to hear. You want to be able to be sure that you are a good fit, but they are also a good fit for you. So and once you get to this stage, the interview is a really two-way process. Like you are interviewing them as well as they are interviewing you. And another quite helpful thing for me is to always have some notes with me, maybe like a little portfolio of maybe I'll print off some reports that I've created with visualizations, or maybe if I've read about an upcoming project that they're trying to do, I will reach out to them first and say, you know, ahead of the interview, can you tell me what priorities there are for your company or any kind of upcoming interesting projects? And then I'll try and prepare maybe like a little presentation, or just have maybe like a flow chart of something that they could do. It's not necessarily trying to really solve their problem, but you're making yourself stand out from the other applicants. And it's always good to find new ways to stand out, I think. And I think I'll probably leave it there. I could talk for ages and ages, but we might leave that for the panel discussion.
Thanks. That's great. And it's also interesting to have this perspective. I guess at the beginning, when you start, you just think to pass the interview, and of course, over time, you really start to have a different view in which it's like two-way communication. And it's also very interesting the point of having a look at the contract, because I know people for which it was really problematic afterwards. They couldn't leave the company or something like that. Okay, thank you very much. And let's move to Zongyan. I think your microphone is mute. Sorry. Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Yeah, just some technical issue. So let me introduce myself first. So my name is Zongyan Huang, and I just graduated last year as a data scientist student. And currently, I work as a industrial IoT company in Sheffield. So it might not very 100% make the data science I learned, but I think it's also something I can share is from an international student perspective to think about how to looking for job. And I think most of the points already shared by Lina and Lucy a lot. But from the general side, I still want to share some point during when my have a job hunting process. I think some point is helpful. So firstly, maybe I want to first address to the paperwork so it's like a CV and a cover letter. So of course, I think most of them you are agree the CV could be one of the most important document for job hunting because that's the key. They share the key information and the first impression about you are a right person to the job you are looking for. So the most important rule is try to describe about your profile very precise and convinced and let the recruiter to contact you. I think that's the most important. And otherwise, maybe just if you are not talking about some skill very fit to the job, they just would be put your CV to the trash bin. So yeah, that will be something not good to you. And from this perspective, I just want to share 3 principles at first. So because it's a CV, not a profile of your social media, and you can share your contact or linking or even the GitHub, anything to demonstrate your skill and experience, but just don't put your age and photo. I think it's some convention in the UK. Yeah. And the second one is to remember to describe the full name of each terminology where you first mentioned, and then you can use the abbreviation to save the space. For example, first time use the Amazon Web Service, and then you can use AWS. I think it's quite important for the international student because we are from the different culture, and it could helpful when you describe something and help the recruiter to understand what you are talking about. And the third one is, I think it's also about the data science mindset. It's always number is the best objective, especially when you are talking about your achievement. It just shows you a very clear picture for how great job you have done. Yeah. And then we can drill down to different sections. So for example, to talk about my working experience, if you like me have some work experience or internship related to the job you are seeking, and then you can push the section above the education part. Yeah. So, but if you are just a graduate as a freshman, I think something is also important is describe your dissertation project, because in the dissertation project, you can share the skill you use and the knowledge you have. Finally, also some finding you can share, and it's one of the most huge project you have done during this year. And also you can share your passion to use the knowledge and the skill to solve the problem in the real world. I think it will give a very strong impression for the hiring manager if you can show something you really have the enthusiastic to solve. And then to the skill and language, I think as an international student, just be proud of all the knowledge you have. You have a lot of the excellent skill and language. And also, if you have the driving license, it's also helpful. Trust me, some companies, they do consider about that. Yeah. When I'm looking for a job, I remember that some list, they just ask for the candidate to have a driving license, and the company maybe will help you to deal with some support from the car or something else, because the location depends on different condition. And then talking about the cover letter, I think some good news I can share to the international student is a recruiter from London have shared me about you just only need to prepare a cover letter if you believe it gives the strong point appealing the person as a company to contact to you, or you are looking for a job in a different function as your previous experience. And otherwise, you can just focus on how to adjust your CV to fit the job. So about the cover letter, I think the most important is you should show why you are interested to this job, and also how you are fit the job. From this perspective, you can think about your background and your skill. So for example, if I have some experience about using the cloud service storage, I can say I possess hands-on skill on cloud storage service, especially like Amazon AWS. This kind of skill and experience will be helpful the recruiter to put your CV on top of the other person. Yeah. So I think this part is also mentioned by Lina and Lucy before, and I just sum up that and move on to the interview. There's also three different tips I just found helpful during I prepare for the interview. And the first one is remember to find the interview question list, and you can get a lot of the list online for free. Yeah, it's a very helpful. Especially remember to prepare some awkward and tough question. For example, if they asking about why did you quit your previous job, you must prepare in advance. Otherwise, your brain might be a bit crazy, and you will give a shock answer to the interviewer, and I think it will be a nightmare for you for a while. And the second one is do some survey about the applied company and the department, and you definitely can find some valuable information from their website, from the product or service page, and also to check on the Glassdoor. The Glassdoor, maybe you can find some information from the previous employee about the comment of their role or specific to the company, and also you can have the big general picture about the salary range. This information could help you to find the job and win the reasonable salary. Yeah, you wouldn't undervalue your price. Yeah. And the last one is during the interview conversation, I think something helpful is try to expand the interviewers sharing about their business and also their mission. Either making an example to clarify your understanding, or ask a question to give them the to give them the picture about you are on the same channel with them, and also you are interested to their job. I think it also show your respect to the role and also the conversation. It will either finally you can get the, I wouldn't say you will 100% to get a job, but at least you just to respect the interview and enjoy in the time. Yeah. So that's a part of my experience. And finally, I want to share some. I want to give a suggestion for the international student is to find some good partner and organize the group to prepare the job hunting in the foreigner, because as an international student, I know you are spend money every day, and you might be feel very anxiety about looking for a job and maybe prepare for the interview, or you just from struggling from fail interview, you spend a lot of time, you might get lost. At the moment, the friend is the most helpful. You will feel fabulous. Sometimes you just need to keep do that and don't give up. And how I think so, from my perspective, some good friend can help you to feel you are not alone in the fight. And finally, maybe some good news just come to you. So that's my sharing, and I hope all of you can find a job either in the UK or in the place you love to stay. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. And yeah, I agree. It's very important to not feel alone on this. And for example, also you can talk with your personal tutor, also with your previous supervisor or the employability team, and try to get as much as help as you can. It's a hard thing to do, so there's no shame in asking for help and learning from others. And now, before jumping to the questions of the students more in specifically, I want to share maybe from me and Deep as interviewers. So we, at least for me, I interviewed people for research positions. So it's a bit maybe different. But what I notice is that sometimes that the student is a bit nervous. So when we ask something, they try to give everything they can for that question, like talk for 1 hour or something like that, try to give all the information. And this breaks the communication sometimes. So what I would suggest is to prepare the questions in a sort of modular way, like you have a short answer, and then you can explain that if you want, you can expand on that, right? So you give the possibility to the interviewer to interact with your answer and to ask for more details. Sometimes it's like if you feel that you're nervous, you might actually obtain the opposite effect, that it seems like you're not actually communicating, even if you're throwing out all the information. And yeah, I guess this is one tip. I don't know if Deep wants to share something else.
Yeah, well, I think that's a really good tip, and I think I would probably I probably wouldn't be able to add to the number of points that all of you have covered today, but I would probably reiterate the importance of what you have picked up today. I think Zhongyan, you mentioned about mentioning something that that you have read about the company or something like that. So it's really important, I think, to demonstrate that you have done some research on the company. And that doesn't mean reading the profile of the candidate that they're looking for or the kind of job that they're looking for. But what it really means is that you have done additional research. And Lucy, you've mentioned that you want to stand out. And one of the ways you can stand out is by showing that you have studied about the company and you know a lot more about the company than what's there on the job description. I can speak from my experience while being interviewed, and this was for a customer service job. And one of the things about that was that it was a very competitive job because it didn't require a lot of experience, but what it required was someone who could stand out a bit. And over there, I made sure that I was researching the company quite a lot. So I went into reading their recent news. So if you go to the website of these companies, most likely you would find something which is quite recent. Lucy, you also mentioned about finding projects that are interesting for them. So maybe you could find something which stands out. Maybe they have been declared the employer of the year, or maybe they have declared that their employees are very satisfied. So you can slip in these kind of information while you are being interviewed. So maybe you could answer a question like, why do you want this job? You could think of reasons why that would make it interesting for you to be in that. So think about what you could gain about reading from these websites, from their social media profiles, how they interact with customers, how they interact with employees on social media. All of that can be quite interesting for you to pick up. So that's probably something that I would add to this conversation.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I really I'm really happy about this conversation. I think there are a lot of great tips, and we already covered actually some of the questions. So I will jump to the questions, but of course we don't need to answer all of them. If something was already covered, we can go to the next and so on. So let me share the screen. 1 second. Okay, can you see the questions? Okay, so I guess we can start with the first. So how to ease the transition into data science mid-career? And I guess Lucy a bit covered this, but I don't know if any of you or Lucy want to add something on that.
I would probably add into this. Data science is a bit of a buzzword these days, but you can kind of apply all sorts of different experience and then learn the hard skills on the job. So if you've got a background in, I don't know, mathematics or statistics, but you maybe haven't done that much programming, you might be able to say, oh, this was my dissertation project, and I am a competent sort of academic programmer. I could definitely apply this to a business viewpoint, or maybe if you've worked as a business analyst and you're wanting to transition into being a technical person yourself within data science or reporting or business intelligence or whatever, you might be able to say, oh, I've worked with all these technical professionals on delivering kind of business analysis projects. I know how these people work. I've observed them, so I could already slot into that job that way, and then I can just learn the programming side as I go. I would say you don't have to know everything before you start a job. It's not necessary. What you do need to demonstrate is the kind of willingness to learn and willingness to adapt. And I mean, even in interviews, you don't have to have a solid answer for everything, but kind of showing initiative and showing willingness to learn. I know this is a problem with women. When women are applying for jobs, they read the job description and person specification, and they're likely to not apply unless they meet all of the criteria, whereas men kind of just tend to go for it and wing it a little bit. And that's a really good kind of approach to try and train for yourself. Like, you don't really have to fulfill all the criteria. You just have to show that you can, with time, become really good at this job. I don't know if anyone's got anything to add to that.
Thanks. Yes, anyone? Yeah, just to add that it's absolutely true about this kind of cultural or gender effect on confidence level. That could be also the way we perceive ourselves and the way we present ourselves in terms of our skills and so on. And sometimes, for example, the Western or even American way of portraying ourselves is we are expected to boast a bit ourselves, to show off. And in other cultures, this could be also perceived as actually as a negative. So we really have to be aware of that and try to find the right balance. Yeah, maybe we are moving towards the second question. So I guess it's also true that sometimes it's funny if you look at especially in programming positions, they ask you number of years of experience that are not even possible, because, for example, a language just has been created in the last 2 years, and they ask you 4-year experience for that. So sometimes it's just a filter, and you shouldn't take it super seriously, because sometimes it doesn't make any sense. And yeah, and this really affects the people that apply. So it's like a filter to let only people that are a bit more aggressive or confident to apply. So try not to get too much scared by this. I don't know if anyone wants to add something about the second question.
Yeah, I like to share a story of my friend about this one. I think, yeah, in many job descriptions, they have a lot of standards and they have very high requirements. But actually, yeah, like Lucy said, we don't need to fulfill all of them. And what we do is that focus on our core competence. That if one of our skills can impress the employer, then I think, yeah, you are probably can get hired. And one of my friends, she was working as a teacher before, but after graduate from data science, she wanted to find a job related to data science, and then she applied a position. It's about data mentor, and it requires Python skills, and you have to have a strong Python programming skills. And but after data science, actually, she learned some Python, but not that strong enough. But when she get interview and she told the employer that she can modify website by herself, and then the employer is really impressed by her skill, even though she doesn't match all the requirements, but she still gets the job. Yeah, that's what I want to share. So don't need to afraid of those high requirements.
Thanks. Any other input on this?
Yeah, I also have something can add on. So from this question, I think specific to the year or experience is, of course, there's a quite challenge, but actually I think, and also I have discussed with some the human resource friend, and finally we have some conclusion is, yeah, sometimes the company they post the job requirement, sometimes they not really think they need. They just think. They just think it's best to have, but sometimes they are much more value for your capability to solve the problem, because they are looking for the person is help them to solve the problem or take on the mission. And as an international student, I think, of course, we are willing to take on the responsibility, as we already just jumped out from the comfort room and study outside, study overseas. So I think it's the best way for us to show our breadth and strong willing to take on the problem, and also show our how we. I mean, during the interview, it's a good place for us to show, to demonstrate how we think about the problem and establish our strategy to solve the problem by the conversation and by think about the question. And also some example I think is when I conduct some it's a code review, coding assessment with some review interviewer engineer with Python. I think even I didn't entirely understand how to use the right method or the approach to solve the problem. But when I think about the problem, I just try to speak out how I think about the problem and discuss with the engineer. And that's some good way to show you are trying to think about the problem and to solve that. So from my perspective, I think the important is not only about how experienced you are, but also about how your mindset, especially use your data-driven mindset to think about the problem. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. I was thinking about this, and I remember when I was interviewing some people, some interviewees were asking me, when I asked, do you have a skill on this? And we just answer no, and that's all. And of course, that is not good if we need that skill, right? But other answer no, and then they show that they have the feeling that it's easy to learn, or they have a similar, like Lucy also was saying, there are similar experiences that can easily be used to transfer knowledge and something like that. So, of course, if you think that's possible, it's good to show that there is that possibility. Okay.
I think
yeah.
also to add to that, with the cases where you don't have something that's listed and you are still in the interview, it firstly also indicates that they are still interested in you, even though you've mentioned that you might not have experience in that. So in that case, you might also want to say about where you can provide some examples that you have learned from one thing and applied knowledge in something else to develop skills. So if you do not have experience in a particular programming language, you might give an example where you've learned from something else and applied that knowledge somewhere else and gained some skills. So again, to demonstrate and to give examples is a good idea, even though you might say that I don't have experience in this, but I have this, I can talk about this example where I've done this.
Okay, thanks. So let's move to the next question. Yeah, so I want to explain a bit this question because it's actually, I try to summarize a lot of questions from students. What they were asking, a lot of students were a bit worried about the fact that the skill set that we develop in the university is not completely immediately translated to what is required in the industry. So the question is more like, okay, what they do after that? How to keep preparing? What they should they learn a lot of languages? What should they do to keep being employable after the university?
Maybe I can take that one initially. So I think there's kind of two sides to this. I would say as any kind of technical professional, you need to, there's a bit of a softer skill that I like to call like lateral thinking, like you're able to think conceptually and creatively, approach problem solving creatively. And that's not really, that doesn't just apply to programming. That's kind of how you approach any problem, say in life. But yeah, just that kind of being able to consider loads of different viewpoints and loads of different contexts, and then apply that to the problem that you're trying to solve. So that's not necessarily a skill, but that is something that you can kind of try and sharpen with everything that you do. But in terms of as your career progresses and what other skills you need to train, that is entirely dependent on where your interests lie. You're not gonna learn something just for the sake of it, or because it might be useful at some point. It will be really obvious where, if this is what you want to do, it will be really obvious what the emerging technologies are, and you will see it in job adverts, or you'll see it on LinkedIn. You'll see that people with a similar skill set to mine can also do this. So I know that at this point I should probably teach myself Python, because SQL might not be quite enough if I want to progress more into data science. But if I want to kind of, I don't know, if I want to take the route of being a data warehouse developer, I might need to look at something like building data pipelines with, I don't know, SQL Server integration services or something like that. So think about, where do you want to be in, say, 2, 3, 5 years? What are your interests? And then think about what the skills or what the currently used technologies are for that, and then take it from there. Don't kind of, I mean, it's not wasting your time learning something, but be really smart about what you spend your time on learning, because as you start working full time, your time is really limited.
Thanks, Lucy. Anyone else want to add something?
Maybe I can add a little bit. I think as we discussed of previous questions and what Lucy just talked about, we all mentioned about something like learning ability. That means the ability to learn new things quickly. Because in our job every day there's new things. Maybe for this project we need to know how to use this system or software. Maybe for next project, then it turns another one. Then it requires us to keep learning and also learn quickly. I think this is what needs to be changed constantly. And another one is communication skills. I feel like in my job, my previous job and the current job, and no matter which one, it all needs very strong communication skills that you need to communicate with others about the problems very clearly. And then also for me, I was working as a business analyst before, so that means I need to understand and communicate with business departments about their requirements very clearly, not with technique jargons, but with in simple ways, and let them to understand easily. So yeah.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so I guess we a bit covered also the next question, but I want to clarify a bit what the students were asking here. We're asking, okay, how the interviewer will know and if I will test my skills, and I guess it depends a lot on the specific topic. And the other thing was, imagine that they ask about Python. Should I learn Python before the interview, quickly? I think this is what they meant when they say, should I prepare for a specific skill? So I guess it's a bit different than the rest. I don't know if anyone wants to comment in any of these two questions. So maybe I can say quickly before you intervene that as an interviewer, I would say that it's not a good idea to try very quickly to learn something. Usually doesn't work, but to show that you could learn it, yes. So have a look, of course, to the skills that you're lacking on, and you just try to find, as we said before, some parallels and some knowledge you could transfer. And regarding how to assess the skills, it really depends on the specific interview. So I'm not sure. What I will do as an interviewer would be to try to understand the ability of critical thinking rather than go into details on the knowledge. But in some cases, there are, I think, like Zhongyan was saying, there are actually exercises or code review and stuff like that. So that's a bit different. I think maybe Lina, you wanted to say something? Oh, sorry, I think your microphone is muted.
Oh,
okay.
Sorry. So I think different companies have different ways to access candidate skills. For example, for those big companies, they usually have online tests before interview to test candidates' strengths, which might include verbal reasoning test or numeric reasoning test, or these kind of things. And we can find these kind of tests online and do some practice before take the formal one. So during the interview, maybe the many ask more detailed questions about CV or to evaluate if you have potential or you have the competency, the position required. So I once experienced interview, and it consists two parts. One part is about asking questions about CV, and also some situation test, like they describe a certain situation which normally happens in the workforce, and then they ask your response, your actions against this specific situation, and then they figure out whether you are a good match based on your answers. And the second part is about technique test. This is not they ask you, write code or something. It's more about give you question and let you to answer how what's the logic to use a SQL to answer this question. Yeah, mainly it's about logic or your mindset, how to solve this problem, not write the SQL code. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Nina. Anyone else wants to add on this?
I might
May I?
answer though. Oh, sorry,
Okay.
you go first.
Maybe first Yang Yang, yes, and then Lucy.
Okay, so to address about the different interview assessment, I just want to share some of my friends. She had applied for some data analytics related job, and usually the interviewer will provide some business case for you, maybe read just a few minutes, and you have to come up with some proposal to solve the problem or try to find out how to make a value or profit for the company. So from this kind of business analytics or data-driven technical problem, I think the most important is have the mindset to learn from data, and also think about three questions. The first one is where the data come from, and the second is how the data will be used, and finally is how to use the data or how to find another context to build the value. And from this perspective, I mean, usually as a data analytics, you have to conduct with the established some data pipeline or cleaning process. I think all these things are connected to your mindset, not only about the business side, but also I think it's a general problem solving solution for the data related question. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Lucy, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I wanted to add. There is usually, I mean, you guys have covered it. There is usually a kind of technical exercise or as part of the interview. I've done these exercises, and I've also put them together for interview candidates. I've prepared these exercises. I would just say it's not necessarily about giving the correct answer. Sometimes there isn't one correct answer, but kind of showing how you can creatively solve a problem, or like maybe just getting halfway there towards the answer but not getting it quite right is still okay. It's not that big a deal if you don't fully answer it. Another situation where I've been where I've kind of not felt like I could quite answer the technical questions, say that I don't quite know how to do this, but if I had the skills, this is how I would approach solving this problem. It's about being open about what your limitations are at this point, but what you can do about it, that's really important. And one more point is I've been also in 2-stage interviews And the first stage would be kind of the real grilling, you know, answering questions and this and that. And the second stage is maybe you meet the director, and it's kind of a totally different experience. So to prepare for that, you want to, it's no longer about you being tested, but you kind of want to show that you're interested in the more strategic questions, for instance. So I would say, to prepare for these things, you can always contact the interviewer or contact the recruiter beforehand and find out who it is that's interviewing you and what their job title is. And if there is a test coming up, you can ask, can you tell me roughly what the test is? And that way, you know, either I'll be able to absolutely smash this, or I need to kind of prepare a slightly different answer.
Great, thanks a lot. Anyone else want to share something about this question? I guess over time, some of the questions, some of the answers trickle down to the next. So it's normal over time. We'll talk a bit less. Oh, one thing I wanted to share is this kind of, since Lucy mentioned it, this kind of multiple stage interviews. There can also be some phases that are a bit awkward, depending on your cultural background. For example, having a dinner or a lunch or meeting the other candidates, all these things can be a bit stressful. And sometimes they are done also to test your ability to be in a stressful situation, or your ability to interact with people. So it's not necessarily directly a moment in which you're being interviewed on your skills. So keep that in mind, but at the same time, from my experience, the most dangerous thing in that moment is trying to either be overstressed and trying to still be in the interview mode in your head, or trying to try to overcome the other, or trying to beat the other candidates if you're meeting them. Of course, I'm not condoning this kind of interview style. So to be honest, I don't like it, but unfortunately, it happens very often. So yeah, just keep that in mind, and just try to leave it as a kind of social situation. I don't know if
If I can add to that, just always be yourself in a situation like that. Always be yourself. Never try to kind of put on like a business face or pretend to be someone else that you aren't, because you want to be able to be authentic in your new job. You don't want to feel like, oh, they hired me because they think I'm this sort of person that I pretended to be at the interview. You want to be able to be comfortable. And yeah, if you feel like you're constantly having to pretend, you're not going to be happy in your new job if you get it. So always be yourself.
Okay, great. I think we can go towards the other two questions. So I guess we already answered a lot to this, but the students were asking about tips and prospects in general in finding good jobs in the data science or information industry. So I don't know if you want to add something specific to the, to this field.
Maybe I'll go first
Okay.
for this one. So I think it can be quite daunting, but LinkedIn is a really good resource. I think over time, companies have kind of moved away from job boards, and the really good jobs are now on LinkedIn. So preparing a really good LinkedIn profile, kind of taking the structure of your CV and then just dumping that onto LinkedIn, along with a really good profile picture, and like some interesting information about yourself on LinkedIn. And then just take it from there. I don't really know about people in the earlier stages of your career, but I just get approached a lot on LinkedIn. So it gets easier as you go. And another tip from me would be to join kind of specific groups of interest on LinkedIn. So I came across, like, I've started volunteering with an organization called Code First Girls, where I'm teaching an online lesson, but I've also met all these other women who work in technology and done a bit of networking, and I've learned about opportunities that way. So it's not necessarily just about searching job boards on your kind of Indeed or Monster or whatever website. It's about, there's jobs everywhere, and you might hear about it through word of mouth or through these communities of practice on LinkedIn. So I think LinkedIn is probably the most important tool. I don't know how the others have found it.
Maybe I can add, another way to have this kind of word of mouth, it's also to contact previous colleagues or university contacts or industry contacts directly. The most interesting job that I found offers, they were always, I didn't look for them. There was some friend that sent me, there's this great opportunity, So try to keep your social network open on this. Okay. Oh, Lina?
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree with you. I just want to share my experience. Yeah, I think social network is important, especially for developing, career. My previous work was introduced by one of my co-workers in a project. Yeah, so we, keep in touch with each other, and we share the information and current working experience with others. And if they have the jobs, they know the jobs that I'm interested in, then they just share those information to me and introduce me to the company. I think it's more easier for just for more easier than you submit a CV in the website. Yeah, it's more directed and more, yeah.
Thank you. And Zhengyang, you wanted to add something?
Oh yeah, just come up with some idea from Lucy's sharing. Like for the social network, I also want to mention for attend some conference or forum is also very helpful. I just remember last year I just came to Frankfurt with Lina, and we know some data scientists in the conference, and after they share us some information about, for example, I remember last was a Chinese data scientist working in the Lufthansa, and he shared us about the information. You can feel free to look to apply the job. No, doesn't matter you have the German skill or not. And like this kind of chance are also established by your kind of a network, and also keep capture the knowledge and expanding your data science network on the some technical conference. And also in Sheffield, I remember at the first at the first semester I came to Sheffield, one of my friends invited me to attend a NGO data science forum called Data for Good. And I remember I even met one of our tutor, Antonio, and one of our senior, previous student in data science there. And at the moment we share a lot of different things, and they just tell us something. If we want to looking for a job, can capture with some local network, and also just keep in touch with them. It's all the chance, I think, just keep open mind and try to just don't focus you have to necessarily in the data science area, but also to expanding your mind to think about how you can use your knowledge to solve the problem and think about any kind of the conference or the forum you can join. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I guess that we are going towards the end. The last question probably it cannot be covered by all of you. We already covered a lot about UK, I guess. So a lot of students were asking about China in particular. So if you have specific tips about finding a job in China and what is the prospects in the China information and data science industry.
For this question, I like to share some of my ideas. Yeah, for China, before we are focused on infrastructure, building and hardware like network, smartphone now are almost covered everywhere in China. So for this part, maybe the growth rate is predictable. But now we are more focused on value-added projects, and many companies like media or small size, they are using service. They are using software as a service. So especially during the coronavirus, many these size companies, they launched mini program in WeChat and Alipay. So business can be done very quickly through them without install another app. And so regarding the data science, many companies have already collected a huge amount of data, but the exploration of value in the data is just started. So the need to improve business performance and better support the customers by exploring data is getting more and more important for companies. When I searched the job website, and there are many job positions like data engineer or big data architecture or data analyst or data scientist. So in the market, there are big needs of data-related positions. And for many other IT-related roles, also requires some knowledge about data science. Like the job I'm doing now, actually the position called is IT project manager, but in the job description, they said that it have some SQL or Tableau and Excel skills. Yeah, so I feel like in China now the job in information industry or data science is blooming, and also the government have policies to support the digital transformation inside of China, and now they want business from low-end labor transform into high-tech industry. The digital transformation is one of the important ways, and we call it now. We have a concept called it. What was that? Sorry, I forgot that concept. It's a new infrastructure, and this means the data is a new infrastructure. So in the future, maybe we are mainly focused on big data, AI, and now we have many startups in Shenzhen to develop AI products. Yeah, and soon we will have like AI exhibition. Yes. So I feel like the opportunities are really many. So we just need to prepare ourselves well for the opportunities.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I just want to add that we will have, since this is recorded, we will also have additional information, I think in Mandarin, from one of our lecturers, Kai. To be honest, I couldn't review the content, but I think it's about some specific job marketplaces in China. Okay, so we covered all the questions. I just want to maybe to wrap it up, ask if you have any additional thing that was not asked that you think might be useful for the students, or anything more to add?
Can I add something?
Yes.
Yeah, so I feel like the graduates from data science, they are mainly focus on looking for the jobs, being a data scientist or data analyst. I feel like it's a little bit difficult because based on my experience, to be a data scientist, we require maybe more technical skills. Yeah, but I think graduates can, open for other information-related jobs as well, because what we learned from data science can be transformed into, IT related jobs. So yeah.
Thank you. And I think Lucy wanted to add something.
Yeah, I just wanted to just say thank you, and it was really brilliant to be able to share my experiences. I wanted to say if anyone on the panel or if students who are listening to this wanted to add me on LinkedIn and kind of reach out with more specific questions that they might have at future point, that is absolutely okay. I am findable on LinkedIn, so if you've got any pressing questions, just reach out.